All right, so this is going to be a little bit of a rehash for those of you that went to the expo and saw the presentation last Friday morning. We had 65 people in the class, so that was pretty good. I put this together. This is more of an intro, so hopefully we have some people that are new to Falcon Player and they can hear a little bit about it. I'm much better at question and answer stuff, so we'll go through this presentation and then we'll go on to questions and answers. What I'm going to show is the install of 1.8 and then upgrading to 1.10. We can talk about the 2.0 release or beta that's out there right now after we get through the presentation. So Falcon Pi Player, here we go. What is the Falcon Pi Player? It's a application that's used to run your show, and it runs on a Raspberry Pi or BeagleBone Black, BeagleBone Green, or the other one now, the Beagle Dog. I can't remember what the name of it is now. So that's what that is. It's an alternative to xScheduler. Originally, it was developed because xLights had a very basic scheduler early on in the 3.0 and in the early 4.0 release. But people said, well, I don't want to tie up my PC for 6 weeks playing the show when I could be using it to do other things. So now for $35 plus an SD card, a USB stick, and a power supply, so like $50, you can run your show and connect to a lot of other different devices and do control projectors, switchers. We have a bunch of plugins that can do RDS, so you can send out the song titles to car radios that see it. We have Twitter feeds. We can text to your display. We can turn the display on and turn it off. Those are all different plugins that Ben has written for the Pi Player. So we'll talk about installing the Pi Player. We'll talk about the audio video connections, uploading the sequence and media files, creating a quick playlist entry types, and then scheduling your show. Again, we talked about the Pi Player. It runs on Raspberry Pi or BeagleBone Black. FPP 1.8 can be installed on a Raspberry Pi. Includes the early Pi B, B+, V2, V3, and then the V3, B+. To use the V3, B+, you'll have to put 2.0 on it, the 2.0 image, because there's drivers on that image that are needed for the V3, B+. FPP also runs on, as I said before, BeagleBone Black, Green, and the new Pocket Beagle. FPP support can be found at the falconchristmas.com website. The Falcon Player, the UI is 100% web-based. You don't have to be a Linux guru to get basic functionality. Supports a wide array of channel output types. It can connect to FPD, which I never had one of those, but it's one of the Falcon boards. It can talk E131, USB devices, Open DMX, DMX Pro, PixelNet Links, PixelNet Open, Renard LOR. You can also connect Hub 75 LED panels, so those would be the P10 or the P5s. Combi Wireless supports GPIOs, and then direct connected pixels as well. What you need to get started, a Raspberry Pi. We'll talk about mainly Pi tonight, but a Raspberry Pi, a 2.5 amp DC power supply, micro SD card, a blank USB stick, hardwired network connections, and then optional stuff, speakers with an 1/8 inch stereo plug, video monitor with HDMI input, and a USB debug cable. The debug cable is more an advanced thing. If you want to plug that in, you can set it up on another monitor if you don't have an HDMI connection, and you can actually watch the boot up sequence. It might be good for troubleshooting if you're having problems with the software where it doesn't come up right, or troubleshooting hardware, because it's a lower level debug option. The stereo plug is so you can plug a set of speakers in when the Pi, after the install completes, the Pi reboots, and then it will announce its IP address. So it'll tell you what the IP is so you can connect to it. Video monitor is more of a confirmation. You can watch the install and then see on the screen what the IP address is when it's all done. To the overview for installing the software, you'll download it first of all. You'll put the micro USB stick into the Pi as well as the USB stick. Boot up the Pi, wait 10 to 25 minutes, and then you should be able to connect. I talked about the HDMI monitor and having speakers connected. You'll be able to hear the IP address. After the install is complete, you can connect to that URL, and you should be able to launch the web UI. I'm going to go through the steps. I recorded it last night because I can never trust what's going on with the PC. So I'll play this demo real quick. I'll now show you how to copy the Pi image for 1.8 onto your micro SD card so you can install it onto your Raspberry Pi. First off, you'll put your micro SD card in your PC. You'll double click on the SD formatter. I know that in this case, H is my micro SD card. I'll click on options. I'll select on for format size adjustment. The formatter version 5.0 does not have this setting, so just skip that. It still works. I'll click OK here. I'll click format, click OK. I'll run it, and now I've formatted the 16 gig disk. I'll click OK and exit. Now I'm going to navigate to the installer that I downloaded the 1.8 image. I'm going to right mouse click, extract files, and now I'm going to extract them to the H drive. I'll click OK. This process takes just over a minute. I'll pause now and then come back just before it finishes. And now it's just about to finish up. And it's complete. If I go to my H drive, you'll now see the OS for the Raspberry Pi sitting there. You'll pop this disk out and put it into your Pi. Now that you've created the disk, insert the disk into your Falcon Pi Player and then add power. You'll see the Noobs installer screen comes up and starts its install process. This whole process takes about 25 to 30 minutes. At some point, then your Pi will reboot, and you'll see this boot up screen if you're actually watching the HDMI output. It will then go down and start pulling in some more updates and configure the Falcon Player for first-time use. Okay, I just skipped ahead a little bit to get to the end, and when you see the login screen at the bottom, it's now available. So now I've logged into my Pi. You'll see FPP. It's running version 1.8. One of the first things you'll do is you'll go in here, you'll go to settings, FPP settings. You'll tell it where you want to store your sequences, and in my case, I want to store it on the USB stick. You also have the option of storing it on the micro SD card. It's really personal preference as to where you want to store it. I always turn on screen blanking because I actually use some of my Pis for the projector. So you don't want that UI showing up in between when you're playing videos. And I also select Force HDMI. The other thing you'll do is go in, set your time. If you have a Pi cap or some sort of a clock daughter board, you can set that here and tell it which type of clock you have. And this way the Pi will keep time because there is no clock chip on a Pi. So in my instance, I've set this up for NTP, which is it goes out and checks the internet for time. And I set my time zone to the Midwest, America, Chicago. The other thing you'll do is go in and check your network settings. This Pi is a B plus, I believe, and it's got a hardwired connection and also has onboard Ethernet or onboard wireless. So I've set up my Ethernet to just use DHCP for the time being. Some people like to go static. That's a different discussion for another night. I'll check those settings and save those. Let's see, what else do we need to check? If one cool little trick, if you already have one Pi on your network and your other one's booting up, you can always check to see if it's ready.
3 em 1. Três olhares sobre política, cultura, economia e comportamento.
Hang on, that might be my...
Programa de notícias e discussão. 3 em 1. Você explora as ideias e os fatos que importam.
All right. This lists all the Pis that are on my network. There's a BeagleBone, a bunch of other Pis, different types. But it's a quick way to find the new one that you've just installed, because it'll probably say FPP. Next thing is content setup. You'll go into your file manager. Here's where you can add your sequences. You can either drag and drop them onto this section here, or click on select files and grab the sequences that you want. Either sequences, audio files, or video files. So you can see that I've got a couple of audio files, a couple of test MP4 files. I do have an effects. I think I used this one. This might be for the spider, the big Boscoyo spider. Scripts, I have different scripts in here that I've downloaded for pixel overlay. And those are more the advanced features, and we can talk about that in the question and answer section. Logs is where you can go and find your logs, look at them. You can download them, you can view them. If you have to send us a log, you can grab it from here and then send it to us. Uploads shows us everything that is in the system that it didn't know where to stick it in one of these other buckets. Playlist is where you'll set up a playlist. So for example, I want to call this my Christmas list. I'll click add. From here, I'll select whether I want to just do media files and sequences, or just a sequence, or just a media file. So in this instant, and this auto select matching will try and select an audio file that matches a sequence name if you happen to save your files that way. So in this instance, let's say I've got media and sequence. So I've got the THX open, and let's see. I'll just make something up here. So Christmas Lights 2005 intro. So I'll put that in there. I'll select add, and you'll see it's in the list. And now I can go and grab another video. Or that's just a video. I'll turn this off and go to media only. So I'll add that video. So let's say I want to change the order. I can just drag this one up. And now the video clip will be first, and then the sequence and the MP3 play, and the MP3 file will play. I always remember to hit save, so your playlist is saved. The scheduler is here. Here's where you'll add start time, end time, what playlist you want to run, whether you want it every day. You can pick individual days. You can pick Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday through Thursday, and Friday and Saturday. I use Sunday through Thursday and Friday and Saturday. Usually Friday and Saturday I go an hour longer. So you create your list. Though this is the start date and the end date. I'll just save it. I'm not gonna do it. So I have my playlist there. Plugins lists all the plugins that are available that we have, and I can talk about them real quick. Matrix tools, if you're using P5 or P10 panels, you load this, and then you can actually draw on the matrix. It's a good way to test whether or not you have your panels in the right order. Big green button is just what it sounds like. You can load this on your phone or an iPad or something, and then associate the big green button to one of your playlists. So you can take that out in the yard if you're going to have one of your light up ceremonies. You can have somebody just hit the big green button. There's another variant on that. It's called Big Buttons. Kind of the same thing. You can have a bunch of buttons on it's on a PC, on your phone, on an iPad that'll start different sequences. EDM audio is for RDS support, for the sending song title and song artist to like the car radios that have RDS. Not sure what this one is. It's been around forever, didn't ever use it. Projector control is one of the first plugins that Ben and I wrote for controlling projectors. We probably support over 50 projectors now, and find a lot of people use them for Halloween. Beta Bright Sign, Twitter, message queue aggregator, SMS playlist control, so you can actually text to turn your display on and off. Message queue, so you can text to your pixel trees or your matrices. Some plugins to download weather information and display that on a P10 panel. And a bunch of other ones. To load a plugin, you'll just click on the install plugin. You'll see the little waiting, and now it's there. And if I go into static or into status control, you'll see I have matrix tools. And now I can draw on my matrix if I had my matrix set up. Script repository browser. We have a lot of scripts in here for doing different types of events or different types of things for syncing a couple of Pis together where you don't really need to use multi-sync. You just want to take a remote Pi and start it because it might be just running your Tune2 sign. So when your sequence starts, you'll have a script event in your playlist, and that'll also fire off your Tune2 sign. There's a whole host of different scripts in here. Input output in 1.8, this is combined in 1.8, 1.9, 1.10. This is all combined for input and output all in one tab. You'll set up your E131 input. So if you're using bridge mode, and I'll explain bridge mode in a little bit, you can set up PixelNet devices if you have any connected. LED panels is where you would set up your P10s or P5s. If you have the, on a Pi, if you have the or you have the Hub 75 adapter cape, or on a BeagleBone Black if you have the Octascroller. Other is where you'll set up serial devices, such as DMX Open, DMX Pro, serial devices, GPIO. If you still have LOR equipment in your show, you can add your LOR dongle to the Pi. You just plug it into the Pi. We support PixelNet for links and Open, Renard, Direct Connect Pixels, a virtual matrix, and TrickC, which I'm not sure. I've never used it, but it's for it's a protocol I think that has been around for a while for other hardware devices. Channel remap is one of the advanced features. I'm probably not going to get into that today. Pixel overlay models. If you're setting up your Tune2 signs, you can define regions on your screen. So I have a couple of different models here for my 2x2 sign. This is the whole sign. Then I've also defined the top two panels and the bottom two panels. Some of that's for testing. Some of that is to send plug-in data to the top of the screen or to the bottom of the screen. So let's say I want to have on the top, I would just want to have a clock, the time running. I put that on the top. And on the bottom, I want to put weather information. So every 10 minutes, I have a script that might run and go out and grab the current temperature. And it'll slap that on the bottom of the Tune2 sign. GPIO inputs is where you'll set up your GPIOs for, a lot of people use them for Halloween. I use them for motion sensors to trigger different Halloween props. So you can define those here and then tie those to script events which then would trigger when you break the motion, you break the beam. The help, wiki help, if you go here, it'll take you off to the Falcon Christmas forum, and it takes you into the wiki, and you can take a look at this comparison of the different types of hardware and all the different features of the hardware. Help index, well, the index, and see, I'm not sure how much, there are some help files in here, but you can find some information in here. Troubleshooting commands, if you're having issues, usually you can run this command and then send us the output of it. But it'll tell us about your network interfaces, what you've got connected, how your network is configured, tell us about the USB stick, the OS level, file system, and a few other things. Whether or not you have a clock, whether or not you have NTP set up, tells us a little bit about how the machine is running, and a few other things. But that's, if we ask you to run that, that's what we want you to run, and then save it and send it to us. SSH shell, if you don't have PuTTY, or you're not on a, or if you're on a Mac and you really don't know how to use or install terminal, it's a command line option for connecting to the Pi Player. So you would just log in. Again, these are more advanced things, but I'll just show it to you. And now I'm on the Pi Player at the OS level, and I can take a look at, you know, the processes and see how they're behaving. And then the credits. About, this is where you also go. I personally always go in here and I disable auto update, because I want to physically tell the system that I want to do an update. I don't want it to update without me knowing it, just because if something goes wrong, you didn't know an update happened. So in this instance, I'm running 1.8. If I click on manual update, you'll see that it stops. You'll get a status display of what's happening. And at this point, we'll go through this because it's going to jump us to 1.9 and then 1.10. Does anybody have any questions? I know I breezed through this pretty quick.
So I've got a couple questions, and then we can open it up to chat or to whoever. Are you done with the presentation now?
Well, I'm just killing time until this update happens.
So, how would you upgrade? I think we're on version 2.0, and should someone upgrade to 2.0 or 1.9, or because you installed 1.8 right now, right?
Yeah, I installed 1.8, and if now you see that I did the upgrade. Now when I go back to the main screen, now it tells me, oh, 1.9 is available for install. So now I'm going to click upgrade. I'll click upgrade again. It's going to say, okay, I'm going to do this. It's going to probably reboot. Now I'm going to do the 1.9 upgrade, and then I'll do the 1.10 upgrade. So 1.8 to 1.9, 1.9 to 1.10, and we might do see, here's 1.10. Now I'm going to do the upgrade again. We might do don't worry about this message. It didn't get a chance to write to the USB stick before it rebooted. We might do a 1.11 that has a couple of little fixes in it. But to do the 2.0, it's an actual OS upgrade as well as the Falcon Player software. So you'll basically go through that same routine with downloading the 2.x image file. There's actually a different way to do it, and it's documented in the presentation, but maybe I can show you how to do that in a little bit. Let's see if this is done. So it's doing its 1.10 upgrade, and when it's done, then I should be able to, when this says, you know, running, then we should be okay.
Okay, so let me ask another question.
Sure.
A year or two ago, there was corruption issues, I think, and if you didn't power it down correctly, has all of that been resolved, or the root cause of it been resolved, or, you know, people said make it read only?
Yeah, I don't do it. I've never had an issue, but some people have. There is a process that you can make the OS disk read-only and then set up your USB stick as, you know, just like normal. But the corruption, it can happen if you pull the plug and it's in the middle of writing something out. And the only thing that we normally write out is log files. Oh, that's the other thing I didn't show you. Let's see if this is ready. Okay. Effects.
So like when my show is over, how do you turn the power off? I mean, a lot of people just turn it off, and that I think.
Well, the correct way to shut it down would be to click shutdown right here.
Right.
And then the power is gone. Now the only way to turn it back on then is to basically pull the power and put the power back in. You can write a script in your and then add it to the end of this that will shut this down at the end of your show. I leave it on. I've always done it that way for the last 4 years. The Pi at my house runs inside the house, and it's also sitting on a UPS, so I don't usually have to worry about, you know, dirty power or issues like that. I'm going to hit this upgrade button again. So 2.0, it's in the presentation. It's available. Let me just wait for this to come up. But you can load it now, but it's beta, so we're still trying to iron out some of the bugs. I filed a couple of issues last night that got fixed. The biggest things that didn't work before the expo were playing MP4 files, and the screen blanking wasn't working. We fixed playing the MP4 files last Wednesday with Chris, and then when I was testing last night, if you were to put 2 or 3 MP4 files in a row, it never went past the first one. That bug got fixed last night, and now that works. So now I'm going to start doing multi-sync testing and playlist testing, and then find more issues. So if you feel comfortable with testing alongside us, feel free, download it, install it, and then run your stuff against it and see if you have issues, because that's the only way we're going to find all the bugs, right? Because 1 or 2 people testing is not going to find every use case, because everybody does things slightly different. You might have different types of elements in your sequence or different hardware that you're trying to drive. But we hope to have it officially released by like mid-September. But you can use it now. I mean, Chris has been running the 2.0 code for, he started running it the day after Christmas, just because he didn't want to take the chance of ruining it up until Christmas. And then it runs every day in his office. He's got an infinity sign that runs. So he's doing that. So I'm going to go to help about again and see if there's any new update for the 1.10. Nope. So we're up to date. So 1.10 is the latest, greatest for now. Again, if you have the V3, B+, you're going to have to use the 2.0 because of the hardware drivers. There is a way to downgrade from the 2.0 to get 1.10. But if you're on 2.0, just stay on it and play with it and learn about it. Then if you find issues, go to the Falcon Player or Falcon Christmas site. And if you go into Falcon Player, there might be a sticky in here for 2.0, and then 2.0 install. That's on PC and Mac. But just file the issues in here, and somebody will find it, and we'll start looking at it. Or send me a message on here or a message in Facebook, and we'll look at it.
So, Pat, I might have missed it at the beginning, but where would someone download the software? Would this be the page to do it?
Nope. Well, you can find it in here, but it's in the presentation. So,
okay.
Step back and make sure. So in this PowerPoint, it'll get presented. I think I have to send this to you, and then you'll put it up, or should I just put it up?
The PowerPoint will not be presented, but the video will be uploaded. So,
Okay. All right. Well, I could put the PowerPoint in the Falcon Pi Player Falcon Pi Player Facebook group, or if anybody wants it, I can email it to you.
Well, but the other thing we could do is when we put on YouTube in the chat underneath it, we could put all the links to it. So
okay. So here are some useful links. This is the detailed setup instructions, step-by-step videos, setting up the wireless, tools for formatting the disks, where to find the 1.8 software. So if I click on this, it should take you, oh, there it is right there. Okay, it's downloading it. Not like I need another copy of it, but oops. Oh, I got to go back to the presentation. All right. So here's the 2.0 image. Dan Culp is the one that's been putting those images together because he's the one that's been making all the enhancements for the Beagle Dog or whatever it was called now, Pocket Beagle. So if you go in here, you'll see his FTP site. So it looks like he put something else up that's new. So here's the beta for BeagleBone, another beta for BeagleBone, a beta for Pi, and then BTRFS. I wouldn't put this one on yet because I haven't played with it, but it's a different type of a file system, but I'm not sure what it's about yet. So these two are two different file systems, ext4 and BTRFS. And you'll see here's the 1.8 software. We go back to the presentation again. There's the 2.0 software, and then some more resource links. Here's the manual. Wi-Fi setup, different options because we can do tethering. You can set up the Wi-Fi to your home network and set up the hardwire connection to your show network. Links for xLights, Aussie Christmas lighting, DIY, doityourselfchristmas.com.org, DIY light animation, and the USB serial cable again. The Facebook groups that are available, there's a Falcon Pi Player, xLights, Lightorama, and Vixen. And questions?
So I have one more question.
Sure.
Some people have converted to xScheduler, and can you use xScheduler as the master and the Pi as a slave if you've got video or?
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't done it yet. I haven't even fired up xScheduler because I just haven't played around with it because I'm happy with the Pi and the plugins that we use. I don't know if they're in xScheduler yet, but xScheduler can be the master. The Pis can be set up as remotes. In the current version of the F16 Falcon cards, they can be also set up as remotes. And at the Expo, we were showing 2.0 software on the Falcon 16 boards, and they can actually be standalone masters as well. So you can have an F16 with the sequences on it in your audio files. There's a little daughter card that snaps on the F16 that outputs audio, and you can put your FM transmitter on there. So you can have a standalone little package. The only issue with that at this point is you'll have to use SneakerNet to move your, I'll explain that. You'll have to use SneakerNet to move your sequences from your PC to the Falcon 16. There is no upload to the Falcon 16 as far like you would with a Pi. You have to copy the files onto the disk on your PC and then take the disk out of your PC and walk it over to the F16 and then put that disk in. We were running that in a demo mode at the Expo last week, and it seemed to be pretty good. There's still a couple of issues because he's still working on the firmware, but.
So in the Pi, do you have to set up all of your universes and channels and ports and everything? Or is there an automatic upload from xLights, or how does that work?
Sure. They're in xLights. You can, if you've defined everything in xLights, you can push. I don't have xLights running, but you can push your configurations to all your Pis. You can push them to the Falcon boards. I believe xLights supports a bunch of different boards. So yes, you can push your configurations from xLights. I don't do that part of it. I build them manually because that's just the way I am. I do push my sequences from xLights to the Pis directly rather than using the drag and drop method.
So the floor is open. Anybody have any questions for Pat? Sorry if I asked too many, but
no problem.
Just curious. So feel free to unmute yourself and
never too many, Ed. You're pretty good.
Sorry, thanks.
Not at all. Question on Beta Bright sign controls.
Yeah,
I have a Beta Bright sign. How do I go about getting any plug-up information to get it to connect to the Pi?
If you load, let me get to the. So going to plugins, and is it a newer one or an older one?
It's an older one. It's probably 20 years old. Still works.
Yeah, it works. So you download where is it?
I've already downloaded. You just did while you were talking, and I seen it. I downloaded it.
Okay,
so let me download. I know it. Question is, I know it has a RS-232 connector.
Yep. So what you'll need is you'll need a USB to RS-232 adapter. Hang on one second. I got one here. I'll just show you what it looks like.
Like the FPST systems?
Hang on one second. I'll show you. So here's a little USB to serial connector, and you plug this into the Pi, and then in the plugin section, Beta Bright, you'll go to the input output tab, go to Beta Bright, and then you'll click enable plugin, connection type of serial. I'm not gonna be able to do the drop down list because I don't have this plugged in. You'll type in, I believe, so the Beta Bright is designed to show your the artist and the song. That's what it was coded for. But you can do a pre-text, like you could say, I haven't played with this in years, but you're listening to 92.7 FM, The Elf, and then it will show like the name of the song, and then the artist, and then you can also have a post text. You'll save the config, and then it should just, every time the song changes, as long as you have that metadata in the audio file, it will pick that up and then display that out. One of the other things to talk about with the plugins is you should always click, before you actually configure it, click Update Plugin, because it will go out and get the latest, greatest version of the plugin. Now in 2.0, we haven't tested all the plugins yet. And I know that the RDS one probably is broken right now because of a callback that Chris has to fix. And probably this one would be broken as well because the callback is what we need to feed to tell us what the song and the artist is.
Go
ahead.
I was just mainly interested in doing it as a tune to sign.
Yeah, I haven't played with it enough to see if we can do, if you can do that with this plugin, or we could just do a different, modify this one. I don't remember. Once everybody started with the P10s, it was hard to find the Beta Bright signs. I had one from another project, and Ben happened to have one, so we wrote it. And Chris actually wrote some scripts. He was using it for a garage sale, and that's how we got it implemented into here. He gave us the scripts, and then we re-engineered them to be a plugin.
Yeah, the company I work for used it constantly in the sales department until they threw away the remote.
Yeah, I think I got the remote somewhere, but yeah, the serial cable plugs into this. You should be all set. And this is the same type of serial cable you'll use for projector control for projectors that have serial connectors. And then we also support PJ Link, but there's a boatload of projectors that we support. And if you have one that we don't, send us the model number. We'll pull the codes and add the codes to it. But a lot of them share codes, like the BenQ projectors all have very similar codes. So, but it works pretty good.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yep, no worries.
Good show.
Anybody else? Questions?
So there is a question, I think, in chat. Somebody said, so in order to run the FPP from xSchedule, do I set the FPP up as a remote
Yes.
mode in the config page? So,
yeah. So you go into status page and then go into remote.
Okay. Someone says, using a Falcon Pi cap, do I set up the 2 ports as 1.31 or AS?
You'll do the Pi cap. Because I don't have one connected, it won't show the tab, but it's not in E131. You'll need, if you're going to, oh, that was the other thing I was going to talk about, bridge mode. So let's say that you're using your Pi Player as as what you're going to just run your show from. And then you have your other, your F16s or your xLight boards. You got everything configured. But for testing purposes, sometimes you don't want to have to create the, go into xLights, create your sequence, push the sequence to the player. Sometimes you want to skip that step. You can put the player into bridge mode, which basically, it's this mode, and it's basically a pass-through. So you can point xLights at the Falcon Pi Player, and then because you've set up all these different universes, it's just going to listen to everything coming in and then send it back out to all the other devices. So you can do some testing. You can push right from xLights, or you can play the show right from xLights while you're writing it, or while you're creating it. So that's what bridge mode is.
So I'm curious, are there going to be any major releases between now and October, November?
Well, 2.0 will be the major release. 2.0 has a playlist rewrite. So there's a lot of cool things you can do in the playlist. Let me go in here and I'll show you what the UI looks like. I just got to find one.
Well, I know Brian's going to be doing a advanced session, so I don't want to steal his thunder, but there will be an update basically.
Yeah, that would be, it's out there now. Again, it's beta. You can go ahead and test it. But some of the things that are slightly different here. So the input-output section, now it's split up. So inputs is where you'll define your E131. Outputs is where you'll set up your E131 or ArtNet output, your pixels. Here's the Pi pixels. So here's where you'll set up your in 2.0. Here's where you'll set up the pixels. I must have one.
We can't see your screen.
Oh, okay.
We see you. Thank you.
Oh, that's interesting. All right, stop video. Now, do you see my screen?
No.
Right.
No, not yet.
All right, hang on.
There
Now,
we go.
all right.
Yes.
So again, so the big changes in the UI, channel inputs has been separated on its own tab. Outputs is there. Playlists. So before, you could set up a playlist. You could have, and in the playlist, you could have say 10 events. And then there was a little checkbox that says, play the first event only once when you start the show, and play the last event as the last event when you end the show. And then it wouldn't play in a repeat cycle. Now you can add multiple types of events in the lead-in. So you could play 3 sequences in the beginning, then do your show, and then, in the lead-out, you can do different things. We also have some language in there now to do home automation stuff. I think it's MQTT is the protocol. And Chris put it in because he has home automation stuff. So basically, in the lead-in, he shuts off the porch light on the front of the house. And then the sequence plays, the show's going to play, it's going to play, it's going to play. At the end of the night, as it's doing its goodbye, the porch light will come back on. It has direct connections. You can write scripts and trigger other events. I have an IP-based 4-port 120-volt switch, so I can send a curl command to that switch and turn outlets on and off. You wouldn't use that for sequencing, but you'd use that for static things like maybe you have blow-ups, so you want to send power to the motors for the blow-ups to come up, or you have old school tune 2 signs, or you have some static props that just light up that are not part of your blinky flashy.
Is there any way to copy a playlist yet?
And give me the example.
Like I've got usually two different playlists. That one I play like before Christmas, and then another one between Christmas and New Year's. And it was just always a pain to have to duplicate it all the way through. And it'd be nice if I could just copy the first one and then just make the minor changes on the second one.
So I believe, and we talked about it a little bit at the expo last week, I believe you can do something like that in 2.0. You can do branching. So there's logic in it. So you could say if it's before a certain date, then you want to play these songs. If it's after that date, then you want to play these songs. So it is one playlist. But the trade-off is you got to be able to think like a programmer then.
No, I am, so I can help.
Yeah. So when you build that list, but for me, I would just say, you know what, I'm just going to create 2 different lists rather than try and mess around with that. I'm going to just put that on hold 1 second. I got to take care of something. Hold on.
You could just save it twice with different names.
I think every time you change the name, it just renames it to the new name.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah. That's what I was always hoping, that I could just edit a new name and have it save it, but it won't do it.
You can also, if you're just on a Windows PC, you can also just go to the actual playlist folder through File Browser and just copy and paste it and name it something different. And then when you refresh the Falcon Player page, it'll come up.
Now I'm playing it on a Raspberry Pi.
All right, I'm back. I had to step away for a second.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that would, I heard part of it, just, save it as a different name, and that should work.
I've tried that before, at least the last year's version, and it just overwrote it. I mean, overwrites it to a new name and doesn't give me another copy of it.
Yeah, you know what? You're probably right. I can, you can submit that as a feature request, but he may say, well, we can do branching, so maybe you don't need that.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that and see how that works this year.
Again, you can download the 2.0 and play around with it. So I can do an add. It's just because I haven't played. So we have media and sequence, media only. Actually, I don't want to steal Brian's thunder. You're right, but we can do channel remaps, dynamic events. I believe dynamic events where this is super advanced, where it can go out and pull the next song out of a database. So let's say that you wrote some sort of an application for polling where people could, vote on the next song. A dynamic event, I believe, will go out and pick up whatever the next one is. MQTT is the home automation. You can put pauses in. You can trigger a plugin. You can trigger a script. You can trigger a URL. Like I said, like that switch that I have, I can send a curl command to the switch to turn it on or turn it off. There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with this. A branch. So you see, so here's the kind of the logic thing. I don't think the help file has been written for this yet. So, but I'll leave that for Brian.
You can touch on it. It's fine, Pat.
This is the second time I've seen this UI. I saw it for the first time last week. I also learned about a cool other little feature that they say it's been in here, and I didn't see it in an earlier version, but in display testing is another cool tool that, and this is in 1.8, but this one little feature is in, I definitely know 2.0, but display testing, if you just click on this, it's going to light everything up. And that's a good way to test to see if you got connectivity, to check your RGB channels. I usually go down to this fill, and then I set this to red. All right, is everything red in my display? And if it's not, then you've got some prop that's got a different color order, and you'll have to change the prop. So I'll test my red, my green, and my blue. This thing is new. I don't remember seeing it, and it's new here. So you can actually test models. So with xLights, when you can push your models to the Pi Player as well, and you can just test a model. So let's say, if I push models, I'll say I have a Megatree model, so I can choose Megatree and then just turn the Megatree on and do stuff on the Megatree, or another model. I think you probably even have a whole house. I've never experimented with it. Again, new feature that I didn't know existed, because I don't think it was in 192.168.1.120. So this is 1.10. Let's just take a look back into standalone, and then display testing. Oh, well, it's in 110. So I don't think it's in 1.8 though. So he added it in 109 and 1.9 or 110. But I never noticed it. Again, at that point, I probably had everything working that I wanted to make work.
So Pat, I've got a question for you. If I'm out in my yard and I'm trying to want to test something, is there a way I can use my phone or my iPad? I open up a Chrome browser or something.
Yep.
Click on.
This really is just a browser. So if your phone can get on this network, then yeah, you could just call this up on your phone, and it'll be tiny, but you can scroll around. But this is where you can also get into big buttons. So let me go into plugins. I'll do a big green button. And
so what do I have to do on my phone? I'm sorry.
Just open a web browser
and just type in that IP address, and
either the IP address or the name, like http://FPP or whatever you call your
Verizon network, for my phone cellular, or am I on the?
No, you have to be on your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you have to connect to your Wi-Fi.
But I have to be on the Wi-Fi, and then if I type that in.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's got to be on the Wi-Fi of your network here. Again, I'm like a rebel. I run my Christmas display on my regular home network because I don't do that much, and I've never seen any issues. And I have IPTV. My TV is delivered over fiber, and I haven't seen any issues. Yet I'm a network nerd, and I've got like a layer 3 switch here, and I should. Multiple VLANs, I should really separate my network, but I haven't. So I have big buttons and big green button loaded. So now if I go into big green button, here's the big green button. And then what you would do is associate a sequence to it. So in this instance, the only sequence I have is Christmas show. Right. So you just click this and it would start that show.
But like your test feature, which you showed, you can do.
Oh, yeah, you could still do this
from your phone.
Yeah, it's just that the UI is going to be really small, so you're going to have to probably pinch and expand it so you can see the things that you're going to click on. But if you take an iPad outside, you can do that too. If the iPad screen is a little bit bigger,
right?
You can drag a laptop out there too. That's what I do. I have one of those big recycling garbage cans with the wheels and the flip lid. I just wheel it down to the sidewalk, and I set my laptop up there, and That's why I do my testing outside. Works fine in the warmer weather. As it gets cold, I don't stand outside too much.
For Wisconsin folks, yes.
Oh yeah,
Wisconsin. Questions for Pat?
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Did I miss it? Or because you were talking a while ago that you were going to go over the bridge mode for people. Did you ever go back and do that?
Sure.
There's a lot of people that probably be interested in that.
I touched on it briefly. I don't have my system set up to do much because there's nothing connected, but basically you go on the status page and then you change to bridge mode. What you'll need to do is also define in on this E131 tab the number of universes that you want to accept from xLights. So if you're doing just some simple props, you might only have 5 or 6 universes. You'll define those 5 or 6 universes here. So
Pat, sorry, just backtrack. What is bridge mode? What does that mean?
Bridge mode means it's like a pass-through. So xLights is going to send to the Pi Player, and then Pi Player is going to pass it to the outputs.
So if I turn on the Pi in xLights, the output to lights,
yep,
that's going to send it through, and it's just going to pass through the FPP and turn whatever on. Is that right?
Yep.
It's like using it as a controller.
Right. So I don't have to have loaded that sequence onto the FPP or anything else. It's going to automatically run through to the show.
Yep. Hang on, let me do something here.
While he's looking and doing something, I got one more question for him because I missed the early part of his speech. Did you talk about on the network setup to route between the networks?
No, that's more of an advanced thing. And in the PowerPoint presentation, there's links to setting that up.
Okay.
I did talk briefly about it. I touched on it saying if you have a separate show network, your hardwired connection will go to a switch that connects all your different controllers, and then you would set up your wireless connector to be your house network so you can talk to it with the PC, with xLights or something. But then again, you don't necessarily want to be pushing a ton of E131 data over the wireless. The wireless is great for using sync packets because it's just a small, amount of data that's going back and forth. But the links in the PowerPoint presentation go over all the different options for wireless or for networking. And I know that we've had a couple xEssentials classes on networking. I think Ken did one.
Yeah. And Brian will be doing an advanced class within the month. So this was the beginner or an intro to FPP, and Brian's going to touch on some of the more advanced features another couple weeks. So.
Oh, okay. That's good.
So you would set up, so in here I would point these towards my Falcon Pi Player. And then in the Pi Player UI, okay, so I've got 4 universes in the Pi Player UI. I would set up, let's do this, see if I can delete them. I think I can do this and just do 4. So now I have 4 universes set up. And then these, this is where you would either use unicast or multicast for connecting, like if you're going to push then to different controllers. Like let's say I've got an F16 that's going to control my Megatree. I use unicast. Some people like multicast. Unicast is one-to-one communication, so it's like an open stream between the Pi Player talking directly to the controller card. Multicast is like, think of it as like over-the-air broadcasting. It just spews data out onto the network, and anybody that's receiving it in multicast is just listening to it. So they're just grabbing the bits out that they need, kind of like a set of rabbit ears on a TV. So if you choose unicast, then you'll put in the IP address of the controller, and you can actually then ping it. One of the cool new features in 2.0 is the ability for the Pi Player to realize that one of your controllers is offline. Let's say, for example, one of your controllers seizes up, or a squirrel chews through the cable. Normally, sometimes what happens with the Pi is, because the controller is not sending ACK back when it's sending data, your show starts to lag a little bit.
Lag a little bit?
I've never had an issue. So
I did. I had a controller go down, and I was switching over to unicast and was not aware of that immediately. And boy, did that show go nuts.
Yeah. So what's in 2.0 now, and if it detects that the controller's gone, it stops sending data to that controller. And then I believe and that was the main fix. And I believe he just pushed an enhancement to that he checks every minute to see if it come back. And then if it did, then he'll start pushing data to it again. So let's say, for example, maybe you had a power hit too that, shut that controller off. Now the controller comes back online, and once a minute it goes out and pings, and oh, it's back. So I'll start sending data to it. We actually had that happen at the show on Saturday morning. The Pi was up all night, but we shut the controllers off to save, not to let them run at night. We turned the controllers on. One of the controllers was on. We turned the second one on, and there was no lights coming on. And I was like, had to think about it for a second. I said, oh, wait. And I just restarted I stopped and started FPPD. So I went into here and just clicked stop and then start again. And then the display came right back on again.
Okay, so are there any final questions for Pat?
Yeah, hey, Pat, it's Ron.
Yep.
So I've been reluctant to use bridge mode because I'm running 56 panels and the FSEQ files are pretty large, and I'm not running anything wireless. So is there a point or a file size where one should be concerned, even if it's wired, or is it pretty safe to run it in bridge mode?
Well, if you're wired, you can run it in bridge mode. Wi-Fi, Brian has said 4 universes.
Sure.
Would be the max before you start, flooding your Wi-Fi. And it also depends on distance, right? If you're just using the little nub, those little USB nubs, you got to be within, good proximity of your antenna. So I don't use wireless for that. For syncing, or you can do it for bridge mode for a quick test, but
right. I don't run any of it wirelessly anyway. It's just wired, but it'd be nice to get away from having to upload or pull the key or the thumb drive and putting the files on there, because I wouldn't need to do that anymore.
Well, to play them, you're still going to have to push, the files there. When you're doing your show, you're not going to run bridge mode to run the show.
Gotcha.
No way, Ron.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Why wouldn't you use bridge mode to run the show?
I wouldn't.
Oh my gosh, the flooding of traffic? No way.
Well, definitely not over the Wi-Fi, but I just wouldn't. Again, my network is all one flat, not flat, but it's on the same network. So I don't have the PC that I'm on here can talk to all my Christmas stuff. I don't have it routed, although I have the equipment to do it. I just never routed it to be its own network.
So I guess
in a switched network using unicast, nothing else is going to see the traffic other than the 2 devices involved.
Right. But the question was more about using the Wi-Fi as the...
Well, I'm sorry. Let me clarify. My question was, since I'm not using Wi-Fi and it's wired, what benefits would I gain by going to bridge mode over the, master slave mode that I'm running now with the BeagleBone Black?
You have to run it from xLights, and your computer would have to run xLights.
Right, and it does. I run xSchedule.
Right, so if your xLight crashes, then you're screwed in bridge mode.
Yeah, and luckily that didn't happen all of Halloween or Christmas last year. I'm okay. I don't have a problem running xSchedule. For me, I prefer that, and the Pi players are great for doing projector stuff or anything else we want to think of. But I was just wondering.
I think in your case, Ron, that it would work well.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be a simpler configuration. But I think in other people's cases, if they're using Wi-Fi or if they're using an FPP master on a Pi that can't quite push out enough packets or
Right.
whatever, then remote sync mode is probably going to be a more reliable solution for them.
I'm using bridge mode on 45 P10 panels, and I am seeing errors popping up at 45, but my smaller panels, I don't see the errors.
Yeah, I would say in 2.0, bridge mode has some kind of packet delay issues. I actually wire struck it. It's awesome stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, were you running 2.0?
Yes.
Okay.
I've run 110 and 2.0, and the delay, even with the color light card in bridge mode, has been very minimal, almost unnoticeable.
Again, it's just personal preference on how comfortable you feel doing some of those things. It's like the same conversation, xScheduler versus Pi Player, right? I don't want to get in a debate with anybody. There's two options. We have multiple options for sequencers. We have multiple options for hardware controllers. It's just personal preference and whatever you've had good luck with.
Yeah, I think it's important. You should be aware and maybe even be able to practice both, because if your computer's down, you throw the Pi on there, you're back and running.
Yep.
The Pi's down, you plug your computer in, you're back and running. So it's an amazing contingency plan no matter what.
Yeah, as long as you have the sequences synced between both devices, right?
Well, there is that, but that's just planning.
Yep.
Okay, any final questions? Thank you, Pat. I appreciate it.
The xLights project exists because of people like you. Help continue the project by making a donation today at xlights.org/donate.